Did a quirky theater show push Governor DeSantis to slash $32 million in art funds? Good morning and welcome to another episode of You Can't Make This Shit Up. Your host, David Washington. I'm Joel Hoxley. We're going to talk about Governor DeSantis today, and the veto of $32 million in art funding from the Florida budget. My goodness. Now, he's citing sexual content in Fringe festivals. So it's like, okay, that's an interesting way of putting it. Now, the critics are arguing it's just politics. They're targeting the arts to stay relevant after a failed presidential bid. The veto affects over 600 organizations. My God.
Yeah. With
local government unlikely to fill the gap.
Mm-hmm.
Arts leaders stress the economic and cultural loss, urging better legislative education on the arts' importance. Despite his setback, the arts community is determined to continue advocacy and seek alternative funding.
Right. And when you look across the state, you're seeing pleas by several organizations seeking funds to replace the money that was lost due to this $32 million veto. And the governor's position hasn't been really played out. It's been murky in a way as it plays out in the media. Of course, yes, he's had some concerns about what our tax dollars are being, what they're funding. And he saw what was in this particular bill. He's like, we're not doing that. It goes against a lot of what he's campaigned about and what he's demonstrated during this administration. And in regards to the Fringe Festivals, which is alternative festivals, I guess, that happen across the country. New York has one, Orlando has one, Miami has one. These festivals are avant-garde, cutting edge. They can be also thought-provoking and controversial. And they touch on a number of issues that the governor believes should be kept private, like LGBTQ plus issues, sexuality issues, issues that don't necessarily play well in the conservative circles that perhaps DeSantis running.
So what blurs the line? So what blurs the line when it gets to art? Because anything can classify as art. Now, David,
mm-hmm.
I write a lot of poetry now, and I've always written poetry. I've just never been the person to say, oh, I write poetry. The macho thing, guys. I guess when you start looking at history like I do, you start to realize that there's so many guys that wrote poetry, and they're very famous, and some of their works are incredible. But I kept it to myself. Now, this would be a great source to tap
mm-hmm.
to be able to help promote my poetry, or to help, cities promote their arts. Castleberry, for all, to be transparent, I'm running for Castleberry City Commission.
Mm-hmm.
This money's important to our arts, and we have just opened up a brand new art center there. We have, if you've ever been to the City Hall, there's statues. I know that you've worked with the commissioners on several a lot of campaigns, and there's art outside of the county commission.
Right.
um, there's legitimate art. So are our tax dollars, if you're a supporter of the arts, you want that money to come in. But should the arts even be funded by federal tax dollars? So let's ask that question and kind of dive into that for a moment. Is it not just because of sexual content, but should it even be in the budget?
For I'm a big proponent of the arts, always have been since my college days, and it's unfortunate that the governor vetoed this particular bill because this funding would have funded 600 plus organizations who are doing some really good work. In regards to the Fringe festival that the governor had concerns with, or part, I think there's more than just that, but his press secretary or communications director, Brian Griffin, stated that when he saw an advertisement for Captain Havoc and the Big Titty Bog Witches at the Tampa Fringe, it just reinforced the idea that, hey, this is not appropriate use of taxpayer dollars, but it would have otherwise been part of a taxpayer funded Fringe festival had DeSantis not acted to protect taxpayer dollars. This is was posted on X, and so it's something that DeSantis believes should exist, but not at the will of the taxpayers. I mean, art in my eyes may be garbage in someone else's eyes, and art is supposed to be thought provoking. It's supposed to present ideologies and beliefs that may counter our own, and this goes beyond just the fringe festivals and typical art installations that this money would benefit, but also was an organization that was caught in the crossfires, and we'll be having them on our show later in July, early August. Is the Digital Democracy Project, and it's a group here in Orlando that sought money for their organization, funding for their organization through a proposal by Representative Rita Harris that hit the cutting floor, so to speak.
Well, Rita Harris is going to get everything on the cutting floor.
Yeah.
No, that's David. I'm glad that you're going to have them on.
Yeah, Ramon Perez is the CEO of the organization. He's going to talk about this organization and how it provides voters and anyone interested information about their state legislators' voting record, and see how it aligns with the voters' own positions and beliefs and so forth.
And that's art.
It's not art per se. However, they did seek out funding for this particular some funding for their particular organization and project.
You heard it here. You got a non-art program. No, it's being silly. No, I don't want to go down there. Look, I think the problem with this is I love to support the arts. I think that money in the budget to support the arts is a phenomenal thing and it's important. However, I do agree that the governor's concern here is the same concern that we always have. If, with freedom of speech, if you put this money out there, it becomes available for something that you like or dislike. And that becomes a problem because you cannot put a door and slam that door in the face of something you dislike and only allow what you like in. And that's where the problem is. The funding is available for all of these organizations or not for any of these organizations. If you want prayer at your council meeting, then you must avail yourself to all prayer. And whether the prayers you like or dislike, you want to open up your government, you have to open it to everybody. And that's where I think the debate starts. Do I want funding? Do I have a problem with funding things? No. But I do think that others don't want their dollars spent on, titty bars and exposed women, or even feces on a painting of the cross. These are the things that create that vitriol, or offend, even though art is supposed to be like
Thought
satire.
provoking.
It's supposed to be thought provoking. It's supposed to say, what does this say to you? Well, it pisses me off. Well, great, it pisses you off. How many other people can it piss off? Or it says, you know, I love this work.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's phenomenal.
Wait, I'm going to come to the defense. Yes, I'm going to come to the defense of the governor here. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I think it's just my uh, political ideology, thinking, common sense, maturity. And people have to understand. And we've talked about this. We talked about this before we started recording today. Um, that Florida is the test kitchen for conservative policy and politics. And yes, DeSantis lost the nomination for president. However, DeSantis continues to remain relevant here in Florida. And DeSantis is, I think, I know he is preparing for another, national run.
Oh, absolutely.
And he is showing that he does have true conservative politics. He has true conservative ideology. And what we see, all the, excitement over Project 2025, the recent Supreme Court decisions, Taraji P. Henson and her, statement at the BET Awards about, voting, things like that. I can't believe I mentioned her name after everyone mentioned it over and over. We talked about Project 2025 over almost a year ago. But people have to understand Florida is not blue, is not purple, it is red. And DeSantis is its leader. And DeSantis is showing what a conservative America will be once there is a conservative president and the House and Senate, or the House or Senate, or both are under Republican conservative control. This people, this is what
It's reality.
the reality is.
And like you say, like uh, I want. There's certain things we say are over talked about, and that you're getting sick and tired of hearing. I get sick and tired of hearing. The debate's over. Wait for the next debate. Hey, Project 2025. David brought this up way before you guys even wanted to talk about it. Now it's all you want to talk about because you had such a poor showing with your president. You want another fear tactic, get people scared. But the thing is, I'm tired of hearing that DeSantis does anything because he had a failed presidential run. DeSantis doesn't do anything because he failed. He just gets back in office. He's doing exactly the same things he did before.
Yeah.
And for Democrats or anybody to say, well, he's only doing it because, drop it. Find a different thing. He's doing it because that's who he is. That's where he's always been. And yes, I do think he sets himself up for another run.
Right.
He's not going to change his status, but those things. If you want to say Project 2025, come to us with facts, not feelings, because you know what? We've already talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about the debate? We've already talked about it. Watch our former episodes. You guys hang on to things and just want to hit us with the same thing over and over again. Look, this is art. Defend the governor. I'm going to defend the governor on the fact that he knows that this money, if available, is available to all.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he vetoed it. Am I disappointed? Yes, because there are some beautiful projects that we lose out on. But in a country that's free, that's $32 billion that, find a different way to get, $32 million you can find a different way to get to. But it's not in the budget. I mean, it's not in the budget because he vetoed it. Line item veto is what we have in our Constitution, and he's allowed to do it.
This is his political philosophy, and it's not changing. He's very firm in it, and it's reflected in his actions as governor. Period. And for the liberals and the Democrats, when you close that million voter gap, million registered voter gap between the Republicans and Democrats statewide, then you can begin starting to become relevant when you actively begin recruiting solid candidates who are competitive, and those candidates and campaigns are thoroughly funded, then you can begin again to become relevant. Um, Leon County recently, Tallahassee, correct? Democrats are in the minority in comparison to the MPAs and the Republicans,
Yeah.
and they're Democrats are becoming irrelevant despite um, recent flashes of trying to become relevant. Again, the defense of DeSantis' actions is based on the fact that he is the governor. This is his political philosophy. It's what his administration has demonstrated time and time again. He has a supermajority that will, continue to support most of his actions. It's unfortunate in regards to the decision to axe um, $32 million. That's about 3.3% of the budget. For I'm sorry, X 32 million from the budget for the arts. However, this is a new reality.
But if you're interested, I want to kind of cover this because there are people out there like my good friend Catherine Townsend, who is a Republican, part of the Seminole County Republican Executive Committee. She's hardcore, but she supports the arts, and she knows where these dollars have been lost in our local government. And that's okay. We give you everything. We're not even going to cut that. But people like Catherine Townsend, she knows where the art dollars are needed. So please make your investments. Get out there and find these people that support the arts and take your own dollars and maybe put them forward to help out, make up that gap. So this has been You Can't Make This Shit Up. Like, share, be part of our network, and make sure you subscribe. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We are out.